Hey everybody, welcome to Spicey's Garden.
Look what randomly grew in the parking lot of the depot. I don't know if somebody dropped the seed by accident or dropped the seed on purpose, or it grew seasons ago and came back or whatever, but yeah, the pollinators are in Home Depot's parking lot. Just pollinating they ass. Alright, let's head on inside.
Today we're going to sow some corn seeds in a kiddie pool. But before we get started, I want you to go and hit that like button for me. And if you're new to my channel, be sure to hit subscribe. And make sure you hit the notification bell so you get notified every time I drop a new gardening video. Now, let's sow some corn seeds. Pow, pow, pow. Why is this so freaking hilarious to me? I think I'm losing it. But it's so moving forward. Well, we're just gonna do two. I didn't know this 1 inch. I didn't expect 1 inch to be that big. So I'll go get the other bit and make smaller holes from that point on. So I didn't notice how low the sound was on this video, so I'm gonna have to do a voiceover. I went ahead and decided to go on and plant my corn right after I harvested those potatoes. The soil was just so awesome. I just couldn't turn it up. I just couldn't help myself. Look how awesome that soil looks. And that is going to be some vermiculite that I added in the soil for a little more aeration, get it a little more fluffier, because I would usually add a little peat moss to it, but I didn't have any, and I didn't want to go to the store. And then that is some steer manure, not from the depot. I get my manure from my local nursery. It's local. You understand what I'm saying? Local. It's not shipped from foreign areas where just say it's better. It's much better. Look at that soil. Look at that soil. So I added manure and some vermiculite, and now I'm just mixing it up really good, and then we'll get to the fun part. Now this is definitely my first time growing corn in a kiddie pool. So you have to ask yourself, is this really going to work? Is this enough space to plant enough corn for it to germinate properly? How would I know? This is an experiment because I already had the soil ready to go. I don't learn from my successes. I learn from my so-called failures. So I love experimenting in the garden. So I'm just going to try it and see what happens. So I put this in everything. Earthworm casting. Corn requires a high nitrogen and pretty high phosphorus. It doesn't need potassium. Not really much at all. So the highest nitrogen slow release fertilizer I have is this all-purpose Vigoro. It's a 1257. That's the highest nitrogen I have in a slow release. So 12. And then you have this bone meal, which is 3, 5, 15. I'm sorry, 3, 15, 0. So I'm not sure if everybody knows this, but you can add these up together, and that's what you get. So if we do a 3 and a 15 and mix it with this 12 and 5, that's going to give us 3 plus 12, 15 nitrogen. 15 plus 5 equals 20 phosphorus, and then 7 potassium. Add this 1.25. So you got 3 plus 12 is 15, 16.25 for our nitrogen. That's all I have. That's what we're going with. time for plant food. And our bone meal. For whatever reason, these bags don't close afterwards. I'm just warning you that ahead of time. So always know that you have a good place to put your fertilizers, because majority of the times these bags do not fill back up. That should be more than enough. Alright, let's mix this up again. You're normally supposed to put this in the first, well, deeper down than this, but it'll be just fine. Watch what it says. Most people like put half the soil, then put the fertilizer and mix it at the bottom, then top it off. But like I said, I forgot about the doggone fertilizer before I topped off the dirt. And what we're not going to do is start all over. That's what we're not going to do. Because I'm happy to be planting somewhere in something where I ain't got to lay chicken wire because of the gophers. So now I'm just smoothing out the soil, smoothing it out, getting it ready so I can make my holes for the corn. And if you're wondering what type of soil I use peat moss, and yes, coco coir is supposedly better, but if you haven't noticed, things haven't been restocked since Covenetia started last year. So I haven't seen any coco coir in my area since March of last year. So I use peat moss because it's $10 for a 3 cubic foot bag at the depot. And since I'm cheap as dirt, that's what I use. And then I get that steer manure right there behind on the side from my local nursery. That runs me about, okay, the peat moss is like 10 bucks. That steer manure runs me like $8 a bag. And the all-purpose soil they give me runs me about $8 or $9 a bag. And then I come home and I have this big container in my garage and I mix my own soil. And that's that. So this was one of the main tubers from the potato harvest, and it had a bunch of little bitty tiny potatoes in it. So out of boredom, I decided to just slap it in the middle of the bed and let's see what happens. Another one of my special experiments. Probably won't do anything whatsoever, but it's not hurting anything either because potatoes and corn are companion plants. So let's just see what happens. So I want to plant white corn, and I have these two to choose from. I have a Country Gentleman white open pollinated and a Stowell's evergreen, which according to the back is a white hybrid. Now, I'm sure you're saying, what difference does it make? So I just wanted to share this with you. Open pollinated is a horticultural term meaning that the plant will produce seeds naturally. When these seeds are planted, they will reliably reproduce the same plant as the parent. On the other hand, hybrid corn is a result of controlled pollination of inbred plants. So, I'm sure people are going to say in the comments that the word inbred is not that serious when it comes to vegetables. But I say, let's don't do inbred this round. This round, we're going to do open pollinated. Okay? Okay. So I went ahead and made the holes for the corn off camera because I'm slightly OCD and I didn't think you even wanted to go through the process of watching me make these holes. So let's get this corn in these holes and get this cracking. Now, what I was trying to share with you in this part, but the volume was so low, is that I keep seeing in Facebook groups that people keep asking, is it too late to plant corn? And I'm like, no, this is literally when you plant corn. You wait until the ground warms up, and you can harvest the corn by the end of the summer, you know. This is when you plant corn. So no, it's not too late. Get those corn seeds in the ground. I have a whole nother bed that I'm prepping probably within the next week or so. And a couple weeks after these at least sprout out of the ground, I'll be planting more corn, a whole nother batch in that bed. That's called succession planting, because we can only eat so much corn at one time. So we'll get this corn, and then maybe a month or two later, we'll get another batch of corn. And bam, succession planting. Now right here, I was sharing with you how I was short a few seeds. So technically, I guess I'm creating a hybrid anyway by accident, because I have to put some seeds in a few more holes right there in that middle section. So it just kind of is what it is. At least we'll get corn. So the important thing when planting corn is to not plant them in a straight line, just one straight row of corn. It will not work. I did that last year. I planted them along a wall, and they looked really cool. And I planted random seeds here and there. I didn't read the seed pack. I'm just really horrible at that. I read and write for a living, but for whatever reason, I don't read the backs of seed packs to indulge the information. I read every word of it over and over again, but I only pick and choose what I want to hear in my brain. So I didn't pay no attention. I planted a nice cute row, and then I planted single corn seeds around the yard. And what ended up happening is I got nice, beautiful cobs that had very few kernels on them. So you cannot plant a row. The packages actually say that you have to plant them in patches. So I want to clarify that, because one of my favorite YouTubers was like, I didn't plant mine in patches. And I'm like, I saw your video. You planted rows next to rows next to rows. Maybe you would call that something different, but in my mind, I consider it patches. So however you want to word it, the bottom line is you can't have one row of corn. You need at least, supposedly, at least 3 rows, okay? And they need to be together, because that's how they pollinate. They self-pollinate each other, if that makes sense. Those little tassels. Anyway, get your corn planted like ASAP, so we can all do this at the same time. And then we'll discuss it as we go. But yeah, that's why I don't know if this will work, because with the pool being so small, it doesn't necessarily afford me a lot of space to plant these patches. And now the finishing touches. Look how well that soil drains. Awesome. really concerned about the nitrogen. I really want a lot of nitrogen in the soil, so I'm going to top it off with some 511. So this is the NPK. This is the nitrogen. P stands for potassium, and I didn't invent this, but K stands for phosphate. I'm sorry, it's the other way around. Whatever. Anyway, all I'm concerned about is this dang on N. I want my N higher. So we're gonna put a little 511 on this. Not even gonna put a cap on. Barely even a smidget of a cap. Just a smidget. If you know what a smidget is. I know some of you youngsters have no idea what that is. I know you probably think I should just pour it in, but I'm trying to make sure I get it all around, everywhere, in all the crevices and all the corners and all that good stuff first. And then I'll pour the rest in there. And if it seems like my sprayer is spraying kind of lightly, well, yeah, that's because I bought it during the height of Covanetia. And even now, the Home Depot return line is about an hour long, but back then it was like 3 and 4 hours long because, yeah, only so many people could be in the store and we had to be 6 feet apart, and yeah, it was a lot. So I never even thought about returning it. So now I'm gonna just pour the rest in. Just get it all in there. I usually would put the rest of that in my compost. But, like I said, I'm really concerned about the nitrogen in this bed. So, look at that stupid thing in the middle. I knew that was dead. I just took that out yesterday. I knew that thing was dead. But I get bored and I just do things because it's my yard as far as humans are concerned. I have to share it with Mother Nature. But I like doing experiments, so I left it there for about a week, pulled it up, threw it away, threw it in the compost. So we'll probably have volunteer potatoes all throughout that compost. After I finished doing all of that, that's when I remembered, after I dug in my apron pocket, I remembered that I wanted to plant some chamomile seeds in this bed. I got these in a seed exchange a few months ago, and they never germinated for me. So I'm going to just put them in here and just see what happens. I mean, what can it hurt? And no, I'm not covering them with any soil because I don't feel like it. So I'm just packing them down into the soil real good. And hopefully, at least some of them will germinate. They were actually seeds from someone's chamomile harvest from when their plants went to seed. So, I mean, the bottom line is when we buy these plants with that Connie tag on it, who's connected with Monsanto, yeah, they're not grown to be regrown. They grow those plants, so we can't regrow those plants. So there's a large possibility these seeds aren't viable. It takes generations to get all of that Monsanto crap out of the blood of these plants, out of their guts and veins. So let's just see what happens. Thanks for watching. Be sure to hit that like button, comment, share, and subscribe. Spicey out.